The mahogany-paneled conference room felt claustrophobic, crowded with the weight of my entire family's presence. Every seat was filled, my 3 older siblings wearing their curated versions of grief, my parents coordinated in pitch-black ensembles, and a parade of aunts and uncles who hadn't visited grandfather once during his final years, but somehow made time for the will reading. I still hadn't fully grasped that he was truly gone. Victoria dabbed at her dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, pausing just long enough between dabs to refresh her Instagram stories, 3 posts already, each filtered perfectly to accentuate her designer morning dress. I kept to the corner, dressed in a tailored black suit none of them recognized as bespoke Italian. To them, I was still Sophie, the youngest, the invisible one, the family disappointment. Still got nothing to say. Huh, Sophie? Alexander sneered. Guess there's not much to contribute when your biggest achievement is being a secretary. If only he knew. That so-called secretary role was a facade. While they blew through grandfather's wealth, I was running the empire they assumed was steering itself. Leave her alone. James, the eldest, waved a hand. We all know why we're here. The company needs proper leadership now, someone who actually understands business. I bit down a smile. Just last week, I'd finalized a merger that added $1 billion in value. The same one they'd skimmed in the Financial Times, never suspecting the orchestrator was their unremarkable little sister. My mother, ever the image, reapplied her lipstick with precision. Well, at least Sophie had the decency to work there, even if it was just filing documents. That's more than I can say for the rest of you. Her attempt at praise stung in its ignorance. For 5 years, I'd maintained the mask they all preferred, the silent daughter with the low-tier job. None of them asked why grandfather suddenly insisted I join every family dinner. None questioned why his health had stabilized when I came aboard. None noticed the tripling of the company's value while he let alone. The door opened, and in walked Arthur Wells, grandfather's lawyer for 4 decades. He carried a single leather portfolio and wore his usual unreadable expression, honed through years of boardroom battles. Good morning, he said, settling at the head of the table. We're here to read the last will and testament of Mr. Theodore Marshall. Victoria sat up straighter. Of course, we know the company shares will need careful handling. As the eldest daughter, Arthur cut her off with practiced calm. All in due time. Miss Marshall. His eyes flicked briefly to me, and I caught the faintest glimmer of a smile. My phone vibrated silently, an update from the Tokyo office about the Asian markets. I'd tend to that later, once my family discovered just who had been guiding the Marshall legacy all this time. Before we begin, Arthur continued, Mr. Marshall left a video message to accompany the reading. The flat screen came alive, revealing grandfather in his leather chair, regal even in his final days. I'd been across from him when this was recorded, both of us aware the end was near. My dear family, he began, voice firm despite the illness. If you're seeing this, I've finally lost my race with time, but I leave with no fear for the future of Marshall Industries. Victoria blinked theatrically, bracing for the spotlight. James and Alexander leaned forward in unison. 5 years ago, I made the smartest decision of my career. I chose my successor, not for their last name or resume, but for their commitment, someone who didn't demand power, but earned it, who learned from the bottom up and led without needing credit. Now, every sibling was perched on the edge of their seat, each picturing themselves as the heir apparent. While some of you were busy with galas and gossip, this person was in the trenches, working 18-hour days, mastering every division, and gaining the trust of our people. They've been CEO in everything but title since my diagnosis. We kept it quiet, of course, for strategy. The room froze. You could feel the shift, the dawning horror spreading through them as it became clear. This story wasn't about them. Sophie, grandfather said. Every head turned, necks snapping toward me like dominoes falling in reverse. Take care of my life's work. You've more than proven yourself. Then the screen went black. Silence fell like a curtain. I sat taller, shedding the persona they'd always seen. No longer the quiet shadow in the corner, but the architect of the empire they'd taken for granted. Shall we begin? I said to Arthur, my voice crisp, just as it had been yesterday when I closed a $100 million deal before lunch. He opened his portfolio without missing a beat. The reading of Theodore Marshall's will shall now commence. The fuse had been lit. Time to watch it burn. This is absurd, Alexander exploded. His face flushed like a man realizing the stage he thought was his had already been taken. Sophie? She's just a glorified assistant. Arthur remained composed, sliding a stack of documents onto the table. Actually, Ms. Marshall has served as CEO of Marshall Industries since January 2020. All strategic decisions, mergers, and financial growth over the past 5 years have been under her direct leadership. Victoria clutched her pearls with theatrical disbelief. That's impossible. She brings coffee to meetings. I finally spoke, letting my voice settle like a gavel in the room, which made it very easy to listen. People say things around someone they assume is irrelevant. James shot to his feet, his tailored suit now wrinkled and ridiculous. I've been running my own firm for a decade. I'm the natural successor. I didn't even blink. You mean the one that tanked 40% last quarter? The one rescued by a last-minute investor? His mouth parted, then froze. That investor, I said, was me, through a Marshall Industries shell corporation. The silence cracked into chaos. My mother slumped into a chair, her composure fracturing like glass. My father looked ready to evaporate. Arthur continued, unfazed. Theodore Marshall bequeaths to his granddaughter, Sophie Marshall, a 51% controlling interest in the company, full voting rights, and executive command of all subsidiaries. Victoria screeched. This is a joke. She's wearing off-the-rack suits. I smoothed my sleeve. Tom Ford, actually, but I've always preferred results over runway. Arthur went on. To the remaining grandchildren, trust funds, managed by Miss Marshall. Distributions are contingent upon her discretion and contingent on meaningful involvement in company operations. Alexander turned a dangerous shade of red. She decides if we get our inheritance? Would you prefer I show you what you've mocked for years? I asked coolly. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text. Instantly, the wall screen lit up, real-time stock metrics, global mergers, operations dashboards. Every figure bore my digital signature. The Singapore merger? Mine. The acquisition that tripled our market share? Me. The restructure that saved thousands of jobs during the pandemic? Also me. My mother finally found her voice. But, you never said anything. You mean while you all talked about me? I said. About how I was wasting potential. How I should be more like Victoria the influencer, or Alexander the heir, or James with his crumbling fund. No one spoke. I've been right here, learning everything, quietly, earning respect. Grandfather saw what none of you did. Arthur raised another document. Additionally, Ms. Marshall sits on 12 corporate boards under alternate identities. Her personal net worth, excluding Marshall Industries, exceeds. Victoria fainted before the number landed. My phone buzzed. Tokyo. Again. I rose and buttoned my jacket. Arthur will walk you through the paperwork. I have a business to run. At the door, I paused. Oh, and James? That meeting you've been begging the CEO to take? I have 15 minutes before my call with the Prime Minister. The next 2 days were exactly what I expected, a storm of denial, demands, and unraveling egos. I was at my real office, grandfather's corner suite, not the decoy desk downstairs, when the door burst open. Victoria stormed in, righteous indignation in heels. You can't just take over like this, she snapped. James is rallying the board. This won't stand. I didn't look up from my acquisition proposal. The same board I've led for 5 years? The one that approved every major move that built a $2 billion company into a $15 billion global titan? I tapped a button. The wall behind me lit up with a dozen global dashboards pulsing with live updates. You spent your time building a brand, I said. I built an empire. But you're just, she waved a trembling hand in my direction, her designer bangles clinking in protest. The quiet one, the shy sister, the family disappointment. I rose slowly, adjusting the line of my suit, custom, sharp, and silent armor. No, Victoria, I said, meeting her eyes. I'm the CEO who closed a deal with Saudi Arabia this morning, worth more than every one of your influencer partnerships combined. My phone buzzed. Alexander again, no doubt. Ever since he learned that his beloved nightclub was owned by one of our shell companies, my shell companies he'd been calling non-stop. Desperate, disoriented. The intercom chimed. Mrs. Chin from Asian Markets is here to review Singapore, my assistant said. Send her in, I replied, then turned to Victoria. Feel free to stay, might be educational. Mrs. Chin entered with practiced grace, offering a respectful nod. Ms. Marshall, the updated numbers. For 15 minutes, I led a live review of our Southeast Asia portfolio, reallocating millions, dissecting policy, dictating foreign market strategies in fluent Mandarin. Victoria didn't say a word. Her posture changed, her expression morphing from disbelief to awe, to something dangerously close to admiration. When Mrs. Chin left, Victoria found her voice again. Does Mother know about all this? I allowed myself a smile. She's currently navigating the PR fallout of never mentioning that her quiet daughter was named Forbes' most powerful woman in business last year. A pause. Though, to be fair, the article ran under one of my aliases. Another buzz. Mr. Marshall is here to see you, said the intercom. Which one? Your father. Send him in. He stepped in like a stranger visiting sacred ground. His eyes scanned the office, landing on accolades he'd never seen, awards carefully hidden during family visits, and the unmistakable presence of power cultivated, not inherited. The London office needs your sign-off, he said, quietly. They said only you understand the full scope of the Cambridge expansion. I nodded. I'll review it after my board meeting. Victoria blinked. Cambridge? But that's the billion-dollar development, news outlets can't stop talking about it. I know, I replied. I designed it. Father dropped into a chair. The wind knocked from his pride. All those times we tried setting you up with promising partners. I was usually already their boss, I said, though watching them explain my strategy to me was amusing. The intercom chimed again. The board is ready, Miss Marshall. I stood, collecting my files. You're welcome to join. See what the quiet one actually does. The boardroom fell still as I entered. Every executive stood, not out of habit, but respect. These were titans of industry, and I was the one they followed. The Asia numbers are above projections, I began, taking my seat at the head, thanks to the team that navigated a pandemic without a single layoff. I caught Father and Victoria in the back, watching, finally seeing. 3 hours later, with unanimous board approval for the European expansion secured and next quarter's growth goals locked, I finally glanced at my phone. Mother, darling, I had no idea. The auxiliary is abuzz. When can you speak at our next luncheon? James, we need to talk. My clients want to work with you directly. Alexander, let's discuss the nightclub. Maybe other assets too? Prime Minister, Ted would be proud. You've done more than carry his legacy, you've redefined it. I walked to the window, gazing at the skyline I'd helped build. The same city where my family once saw me as invisible. They saw now. A soft knock at the door. Miss Marshall, said my assistant. Media outlets are requesting interviews. They're calling it the silent CEO story. I smiled, eyes still on the horizon. Tell them I'm too busy running the company to explain how I run the company. I didn't build this empire by making noise. I built it by doing the work, while they were busy underestimating me. Sometimes silence isn't surrender. Sometimes, it's strategy. And sometimes, the quiet ones stay quiet not because they lack a voice, but because they're too focused on changing the world to stop and announce it.